Do what?
I would like to call the school board meeting for September 1st, 2015 for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Please take the roll.
Ms. Caldwell-Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Ms. Boson?
Here.
Ms. Ellsburn?
Here.
Mr. Barron?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second?
Move approval.
Second.
I think we have. Yes. Yes. Pulling my agenda up in front of me. D8? D8. Okay, we will do that. So now we are voting, well, may I have, we took a motion for the original agenda. May I have, can we amend that motion?
Yes, we can amend that motion.
That motion, okay. So we're voting on the agenda with item D8 pulled for a separate vote. Motion and a second, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from August 18th. May I please have a motion and a second to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0 with one abstaining. Next on the agenda are the consent items. We allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak to an agenda item, please go to the information desk to sign up. Remarks must be germane to the agenda, and we ask that you avoid references to personalities and character attacks, as those types of comments serve no productive purpose. As a reminder to the board in public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with a speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determinations as deemed necessary. We appreciate your input. Mr. Blake, do you have the motion?
I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized and certified by the secretary and approved for payment by the board chair in the amount of $3,404,275.80, unpaid bills in the amount of $790,205.98, and procurement card payments of $471,815.66.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Mr. Howard. Any discussion? Please vote. Consent items are approved, 7-0. Next on the agenda, we have district recognitions. Dr. Ahart?
Good evening, board. We have a few different recognitions tonight, starting out with what seems like a pretty frequent occurrence in the recent past, East Baseball. For 2 of the past 3 years, the East Scarlets have competed in the Iowa High School Baseball Tournament, this year earning a trip with a convincing win over Johnston, one of the top-ranked teams in the state in the regional finals. While the Scarlets lost their first-round game to Iowa City West, they have shown themselves to not only be a consistently solid baseball team, but also great representatives of our district and of our city. In addition to the team's success, 2 East players, Connor Enox and Chino Alcala, both earned multiple All-State honors. Between several seniors graduating and other players also being on the football team, we don't have a large group with us this evening, but I am pleased Coach Brian Luffs was able to stop by. I want you and your team to know how much we appreciate your accomplishments and pass along a small sign of that for your trophy case. Brian, I saw you earlier. Come on up. And any of the Scarlets in attendance.
We got a couple players.
All right.
Thanks, Dr.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ms. Morris. And my young players here. Everybody else went to college. They're all in college. So 10 seniors, 10 colleges. Thank you very much.
Leslie, would you want to stand and be recognized, the new principal at East High School? Leslie Morris. Next, also becoming an annual event, Communications Staff Awards. Our communications staff continues to earn recognition for sharing news and information about the many successes we enjoy at DMPS. In the recent awards presented by the National School Public Relations Association, our school district earned 5 awards of excellence, the top honor, and the most we have ever won in a single year. DMPS was recognized for our new e-newsletter, for our new HR brochure, for our efforts on Instagram, for our new welcome signage at our schools, and for a DMPS-TV report about social media. Speaking of social media, for the second year in a row, DMPS is also a recipient of the Hashi Award. The awards are presented by the Social Media Club of Des Moines to honor state leaders in the use of social media. The competition was much stiffer this year as the number of submissions was quadrupled last year's inaugural award program. Still, DMPS earned first place honors in recognition of our use of Facebook, and the school district was one of only 3 organizations to be an award finalist in 4 different categories. I'm pleased to turn over this stack of awards to our Communications Director, Phil Rader, and the members of his team. I don't know if I can lift all of these in one sitting. Come on up, Phil and team.
That's why I asked everybody to come.
Come on up, guys. And Amanda.
Well, just real quick thanks. It's great that we won the most ever for the district, and hopefully it's a recognition of both the quality of our work as well as the impact of it. But the best part about it is really the wealth was shared among the whole team. I mean, for Amanda Lewis and Mike Wellman, who develop a lot of the content that goes out on our website and our newsletters and social media, to John Lemons and Kyle Nicely, who make sure we have great photographs and video images that share the work of the district, and of course to Adam Rower, our web and graphic designer, who makes sure everything we do looks good. Really was a team effort and spread across the board, and our work's made a lot easier, especially this past year, given all the great things that have gone on in the district. And with that, we expect with the start of this year, we'll be bringing more home next year. So we'll be back. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'm going to vote no.
All right, and we have one more recognition. As we talk about our students being lifelong learners and prepared for both college and careers, it's a pleasure to share a new example of the many options available through DMPS. A new partnership between the school district and Local 33 of the Plumbers and Steamfitters Union is supporting a new apprenticeship program. This program helps DMPS help support our own employees, allowing recent graduates to earn while they continue to learn. The first DMPS graduate in the program is Cesar Silva, who is a 2014 graduate of Hoover High School and the Central Campus Welding Program. I'm pleased to introduce Andy Roberts, the business manager at Local 33, and Connie Sievers, our director of career and technology education, to share a little bit more about this exciting new initiative. Connie and Andy, and do we have Cesar here? Oh, all right. Good.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks.
Want me to go?
I want you to go.
Thank you, everybody. I'll just take a moment of your time to share this wonderful story that we've been working on. It's probably going to put a smile on all your faces, I'm sure of that. I would like to introduce Cesar Silva to you. Cesar is going to be the new addition to our JETC, which is our Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee for the Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 33. As the doctor was mentioning there, it's Earn While You Learn. This apprenticeship program is a 5-year program. As you can tell from underneath there, it is a minimum of 8,000 hours of on-the-job training that he will be getting with the Des Moines School District. Currently, all the members under your plumbing, hydronics, mechanical, HVAC, and R refrigeration are all members of the Plumbers and Steamfitters of Local 33. We grew up in a trade of having apprentices work underneath us. We call them Cubs. All right, for the next 5 years, Cesar is going to be called a Cub. And I just want to give you some of the examples of what it does. The morale of it, first off, for the staff and what it's going to create for the fellow members up there. They all love to have an apprentice working underneath them. All all right? The second thing I want to point out is the safety side of it. To have a young man that's out there to maybe lift some of the burden off some of the aging members working for your community right now, no offense taken, but workman's comp, it can be very extenuating and very expensive all the way around. And the last thing is, as you all know, I know you guys look over the budget and what you have to do. Having a joint labor cost with a journeyman mixed with an apprentice, it's money ahead for the Des Moines School District. And for this training, the plumbers and steam fitters have come with an approach that's very, very economically for you guys. We're asking for a simple $1,500 a year, so a total of $7,500 in a 5-year term to help train this young man right here. Now, he is coming from Ralph Young here. Ralph is the welding instructor here at Central Campus. We have selected, I would probably say, where are we at, 10 or 12 guys from the Central Campus program and put them in to our apprenticeship program. What Ralph teaches at welding is a great start, but what we need and what we're short throughout the United States are pipe welders, certified welders. And that's a heck of a lot different than what just a regular flat plate welder is. To get your certifications in pipe welding takes a little bit more time to develop it. And all said and done, when we get done with this whole process, what I handed this piece of paper to you guys is exactly what Caesar's going to walk out of our apprenticeship when he's done with the 5-year. He's going to have a minimum of 2 statewide licensing, either in plumbing, hydronics, his mechanical, his HVAC, or his refrigeration. He's going to have an associate's degree in applied science. We have an articulate degree with DMAC. DMAC actually comes down to our training center and puts on classes for our apprentices, speech class, labor history, and some math. It's to help wrap up to get his associate's degree. He'll have a 30-hour OSHA training. He'll have a MedGas installer certification. He'll have a MedGas brazier certification. He'll have a universal CFC refrigeration certification. He'll have a UA industrial rigging certification. He'll have a UA foreman trading certification. He'll have an NCCO, a qualified signal person certification. He'll have a backflow tester certification. And last but not least, he'll have or at least option of getting multiple weld certifications. Not only does he have these opportunities coming out of the apprenticeship, but he also has the continuing education through the plumbers and steam fitters as a journeyman to get his CEUs and also to advance himself in any other of the weld certifications that he may like to acquire. Any questions with that? And we're excited. We worked extensively with Bill. I know Bill Good's around here somewhere, Jamie Wilkerson. So hats off to them guys too, you guys. This is a partnership that we're in, and we're looking forward to getting this off the ground. We really are. I really think this is the start of it. You guys do have electricians working for you, laborers, carpenters. I think this is something that's just going to fall into pieces and go down the line a little bit farther. Go right ahead. No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And once he said he is a Hoover graduate and a Central Campus. And I just also want to say something about this young man. Starting in May, he's been holding 2 jobs and working 80 hours a week. All right, we look for that. We're going to capture what he has, the qualifications to go to work every day, and now give him the certifications that he needs to go out to be a successful plumber and steam fitter. Thank you.
I just want to say this is what career and technical education is all about. It's about connecting with those business partners. It's about connecting with education. An apprenticeship is definitely secondary education. And we have a theme going on now in career and tech. We try to think about growing our own, and this is definitely growing our own. We're trying to grow our own teachers and teacher academy. We're even trying to grow our own police officers now with criminal justice. Many of those opportunities exist, and I hope we could just keep reaching out to the businesses and to make more of these things happen. Thanks so much. No? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is item D8, monitoring report for governing style and values, 1.1. This is our board self-monitoring, self-evaluation report. Were 7 of us completing that report with compliance. So I'll take a motion in a second to accept item D8.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and now discussion.
So I pulled this item off of the agenda because as I was going through the document and completing the evaluation, it appeared to me that there are some places where we could merit maybe a little wordsmithing and a little tightening. And I would be more than happy to participate with some of my board colleagues in going through that process. But I think that we could definitely make it a little more user-friendly. And I think that there's definitely some room for improvement, and I'm willing to step up to help with that.
Okay.
I was going to say, we were on the original committee, so if Rob, you and I want to meet or whatever, I would be happy to get together. And Pat, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, you can join us. Volunteer your time.
About 15 days worth.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So I would suggest that we do that. We throw it back to the committee that originally looked at it, and we can look at the wording and make sure, and bring it back, because we all agreed. So it's now, sometimes when you put it into practice, there's modifications. So now that we've used it, been through.
Yep.
I think that's the importance of doing our review that we do, because we get more familiar with the wording of our actual policies and things. So I would welcome that we all, I would volunteer also.
I'm already volunteered because I'm on the policy review committee, so I'm in.
Is it a review of the policies or a review of the compliance?
Yeah, so, well, I think that there actually, as I was going through it, there are like a few words that just sort of caught me off guard that I'm sure I read before, but as I was physically going through and evaluating my performance against the policies, it became clear to me that, so does somebody have to tell me how to behave? And there are just a few words in there that just quite didn't catch me right. So there could be a few minor modifications. I'm not for sure that they would necessarily change the intent, but I think it may provide an opportunity for us to maybe have some different language that I think may be a little more appropriate.
And it could be actually just part of the actual board policy review group that, we did it, 6 months ago?
Right.
So it's, review it again.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Okay. So, thank you for volunteering yourselves for the,
I think we're already on the committee.
yeah, you
so-
already are on the committee. Thanks for volunteering yourself extra. Okay.
Do we need to take action? Did we vote?
We haven't voted, so we do have a motion and
About
a
the
second.
compliance of the.
Yeah, we need to just
On the
vote to
compliance.
approve it. Yep.
Yep, so please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is item E1, naming of the space at Scavo High School. This is a discussion item, and do we have any speakers for that item?
No,
Not for Scavo, for Knowlton Gentry? No?
no, we don't.
Okay, so this is the naming of a space.
We do have, if they are here.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, right there.
Right. Can we do it
Okay.
first?
Did they sign up?
They didn't talk.
Please come forward. I don't know your names. Sorry.
Hello, good evening. Suzanne Heckenleibel, and I am the Vice President of Public Affairs for Delta Dental of Iowa and the Executive Director of our foundation. On behalf of the foundation, as well as Mid-Iowa Health Foundation, we are pleased to partner with Des Moines Public Schools in the first in the state school-based dental clinic, and the funding of that dental clinic. It is certainly a part of an innovative school-based health clinic, so treating the child, the whole child, and making sure that not only their health, but their dental health, their overall health is treated so that there is the success in learning through the years at Des Moines Public Schools. We are honored, in addition, to propose to honor a community leader, Knowlton Gentry, in the naming of the dental clinic here at Scavo. So those are my brief comments tonight.
So our process for this is to have a subcommittee to review the naming proposal, and that has been Rob, Bill, and Pat. To do that? Pat? Yep.
Oh, I'm going to ask a question.
do we need to really, maybe I'm circumventing the process, but considering the individual and considering all the work he has done in Des Moines and Iowa and for the school district, being a past school board member, I'm wondering if it really needs to ferret through the process, or can we expedite it?
Sure, I don't disagree, but it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to honor the process for all of our naming requests.
We could still honor the process, and the subcommittee could meet after this meeting. And then
Okay.
it would be ready for the agenda at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
we can, yeah.
Okay.
Works for me.
Sure, I'll be there.
I'm available.
I'm volunteering.
Okay, so
All
our
right.
subcommittee will be meeting to review this right after this meeting.
Madam Chair, I'm not on the committee, but I'm sure that I don't have to wield any influence over my school board colleagues to seriously consider this opportunity to name the clinic for Attorney Nolden Gentry, who was the first African-American elected to the Des Moines School Board and serves on the board of directors for both Mid-Iowa Health and Delta Dental, who are advancing this nomination for our consideration. So just thought I'd add just a couple more things for you to consider as you ponder your recommendation.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is item E2, the naming of a room at the Jesse Franklin Taylor Center. And I'm getting to my agenda here. And we do have speakers. Rhonda Kaysen. Okay.
Okay.
So
Do a joint
Rhonda
statement.
Barberetta Bruton.
Okay. I'm Rhonda Kaysen, and I live at 1819 Jefferson. And I'm Maudine Ewing Carter. I'm Maud White's granddaughter.
And Barberetta Bruton, and Maud was my mentor.
Iowa has such a rich history and resources, and one of the greatest ones that we have was Maud Esther White. Maud, although I didn't know her, and I want to correct the nomination, she was born September 13th, 1913 in Enterprise, Iowa. And so she's a native Iowan. And she graduated high school from Perry. From there, she moved to California, and she completed secretarial school, but Maud always believed in education and knew that if you completed education, it was a gateway for you. And so she completed 3 years of school at Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley. But she was a person that liked to see the world also, so she would spend a year in Africa before she returned to Iowa. And upon returning, she received her bachelor's degree from Drake, as well as her master's from Drake in social science or sociology. She did so many things, but everything that she did was for the betterment and the benefit of people in the community. One of the things that really struck me was that even when she required from the state, because the governor asked her to be the chair or the first person of the Iowa Human Rights Commission, and she did that until her retirement. But when she retired, Maud wasn't done. It's at that time that she decided to become a substitute teacher in the Des Moines public school system. And then she recognized a need that some of the students required additional development assistance. And so she started tutoring out of her home. And it developed into 11 places, and some of the tutoring sites were in the Des Moines public schools, elementary schools. All the time, she's trying to make a difference in the lives of children. And so therefore, because of her dedication, and she was such a distinguished lady that I won't go into all that she has done, but people, families, children were her primary concern. And so therefore, I feel to honor her, it would be appropriate if we could name the other great room at the Jesse Franklin Taylor Center after Maud Esther White. And I'll let people that knew her speak about her. Excuse me.
The nominee for naming the room in the Jesse Taylor building would be an honor, speaking as her granddaughter, to see my grandmother's legacy of education and the love of children live on. Thank you.
I also support the nomination of the room being named after Maud Esther White. Maud was a real leader in the community, and education was important. I feel that my role here is to help keep her name lifted up, because the children that she served at that time are now 40 and almost 50 years old. So there's very few of us behind these two legacy groups to even know who Maud was and what she did. And her work was so important because most of the after-school tutoring programs within the African American community are based on the early work that she did, especially the connection with the Des Moines Public Schools, because she always wanted to make sure that what was happening with the children was in line with what was happening in the classroom for the greatest kind of effect. And I know we do that with the Corinthian Jumpstart program. We work very closely with Holly Crandall and all of the supervisors, and we want to make sure that those connections are there. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, another naming nomination that sounds wonderful. So if the committee would also add that to their
I was going to
list
just
this
say,
evening.
I don't see any reason why we can't discuss both of them at the same time and move them along, because,
Second volunteer time would be great.
hey, I'll
One
tell
Time
you,
to say yes twice.
Yes.
we're volunteering more than we ever have.
We're just getting our money's worth out of you guys.
Great, excellent. Okay, so both of those naming recommendations will be reviewed after the meeting by our subcommittee, and thank you again. On to our next agenda item. It's E3, the Health Benefits Advisory Committee. This is a report from Blake Hammond, Kathy McKay, and Tammy Steinwad.
Cindy, are you guys gonna stand?
You may sit if you'd like.
I'm gonna.
That's better, yes.
This isn't counting as a wellness activity, Tammy, so you can go ahead and sit down.
Like you're in charge of the slides.
I just want to make a comment before we start. I just want to make a comment before we start. Can I? Go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Howard would like to make a comment before you start.
This is a personal observation or it's personal observation. I want everybody to know that this group and the things they do work. In case anybody has not noticed, I'm not sick, and I've lost weight because on my own, and the Fitbit works, the whole regiment works. If you have the commitment and the time, the apparatus is in effect, and it's there for people to use it. It's up to the individual. So call it a testimony or whatever you want to call it. It does work, and so kudos. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I thought maybe he would do a Fitbit check and be like, "Where are you at, Hammond?" and check steps with me.
Oh, well, I could, but nah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come to speak to you tonight regarding the work of the Health Benefits Advisory Committee. This group has taken on some really big challenges in the last couple of years. And in the past, the Health Benefits Advisory Committee solely concentrated on deductibles and coinsurance. They really didn't delve into the nitty-gritties of health insurance, how it works, why it functions the way it does, and how can we change it for the better. And I want to give this committee tons of credit for what they've done in the past couple of years in really taking on the hard work that it requires to understand the workings of the health insurance plans. It's been a journey. We understand it's a journey. It's not a one-stop. And this group is really committed to continuing on that journey. We've got a charter, we've got focus, and we've got some really hardworking individuals. And so Blake and Tammy are going to share some of the work that we've done in this last year.
Well, I'm going to take you back to last year when we presented to you and we were talking about recommendations that were centered a lot more on the benefits side than on the wellness side. We kind of said we needed to give the wellness another year to really see and engage employees a little bit more. And last year we came to you and we recommended and said we needed to look at generic utilization and look at some changes in the Tier 4. We're happy to report that all parties across the district and the system have accepted that, and that's currently in place. And so that's something that we'll continue to monitor is what do we see in terms of prescription drug utilization as we've carved out those Tier 4 higher end drugs that have generic equivalents? Will we see a shift in some action by employees and those on the insurance plan? We also looked at the emergency room copay. We looked at what was going on across the state and other school districts and other businesses and said, you know, maybe the $50 copay is not the right amount. Let's increase that amount and see if there's some changes in those people who are possibly using the emergency room more as their clinic rather than the emergencies that are there, knowing that if you're admitted for a true emergency, then that is a waived fee. We also looked at out-of-pocket maximums, and that was the tough one last year to really look at, and we said, we've got growing health insurance costs. Is this the right place where we come together and say, this is the right cost sharing? And ultimately, that was the decision made to look at an increase, and we'll monitor out-of-pocket maximums. Do we see any changes in how people are using their health insurance? And then kind of at the end of last year, it came across to look at the vision plan, knowing that not every employee in the district has the vision plan, but we said, is it being best utilized? And when Kathy McKay went and looked at where we were with vision, we were able to make an improvement in the vision plan, making it a little bit better, richer plan, so to speak, at no additional cost. So we'll monitor that and see how are people utilizing the vision insurance? Is it the right kind of insurance, or do we need to make changes with that? So that's kind of where we were last spring. And so now we go to where are we at now?
Moving forward into the 2015-16 year, we have the opportunity to look at an alternate care delivery system under our health insurance. I don't know how many of you have heard of ACOs, which is an acronym for Accountable Care Organizations. We, as Des Moines Public Schools, have just signed on to participate in a pilot program with Wellmark on an ACO product. What an ACO really does is it holds physicians accountable for the quality and for the cost of the care that they provide. There's some cost measures that Wellmark has in place. Individual doctors have to meet the quality and the cost in order to get the incentive. So you cannot jeopardize one to make the other one look better and get you those cost incentives. There's some great opportunities for Des Moines Public Schools as a district for some savings. If we join this, we will be having some financial sharing with those ACO groups, and we'll be able then to save and partner in with the savings as well. It's estimated that if we would have been up and running in this ACO last year, Wellmark ran numbers that the district would have saved approximately $1.4 million in healthcare savings. And then they ran it for what they're estimating for the next year, and they're estimating right around $1 million in savings. So it's something we're really excited with, and we'll keep you abreast of how that goes.
The Health Benefits Advisory Committee currently has some targets and goals for this year in terms of areas that we've honestly already been exploring for the last year, but we want to come forward with more in-depth, rich recommendations for you all. So we're going to continue looking at vision plans. We want to monitor the enhancement that we just made and see, how it changes, and we'll come forward in 2016 to look more at vision plans. We're currently looking at dental policy. There's been a lot of feedback from employees to say, is our dental coverage exactly what it needs to be? Is it really meeting the needs? So we're looking at, if we change it, what are the cost implications? What do we gain? What do we lose if we make any changes in dental? We've made some policy explorations. We need to look more at where are we at in terms of tobacco and nicotine. We've done some updates in that already. We currently have a fragrance and scent. It's not a policy.
Standard.
It is a standard, a fragrance
Thank you.
standard, because it is not a policy, because I don't want anybody to come and attack me on that one. Also looking at, Wellmark has been working with us all spring, doing all kinds of auditing, looking at our work sites, meeting with basically any of the different employees within the system to look at what's going on. What are they seeing from an outside perspective? How does that compare with what's going on in a statewide comparison? And so that we're feeding all those elements, and that comes to the last one, which the HBAC right now is currently in the process of looking at the wellness program as a whole. We know that we need to, for lack of a better term, step the game up of what everybody's expected to do from a wellness perspective. The first few years, we knew we needed to dip our toes into it. We needed to make it a program that was easy, that was inviting, that people understood. This is confidential. This is about you. This whole school district has said the wellness is about you and doing the things that are going to help you, and that this is not a forced, you don't have to participate in the program. And I think probably from the 17,000 or so emails or messages that we get from Tammy, I think that's been a pretty clear message. It doesn't mean that everyone, gets that message, but we've said that this is a program about you, and now we need to step that game up and really push ourselves. And you say, oh, well, what exactly is our guiding standards and principles? If you're not familiar with,
Did it go? There we go. There we go. Oh.
If you're not familiar with the WellCOA benchmarks, WellCOA is pretty much the standard bearer across the country when it comes to wellness programs, and they base everything on 7 benchmarks. So if you know of any of the local Des Moines organizations that have wellness programs, if you ask them what is their basis, it is on the WellCOA standards. And so we're going through and reviewing where are we already at. There are a lot of things here within the 7 benchmarks that you would go, man, we are off to an amazing start. There are some things here that we say, you know what, how can we step this up? How can we engage and make the Des Moines Public Schools a well workplace, which I'll use a little chairman's privilege here on HBAC. To me, that's I think that should be our long-term goal, is how do we make the Des Moines Public Schools a school district in Iowa, which there are, I think, 1 that receive any sort of recognition from WellCOA and say, we've met the benchmarks all the way across. We are fully committed and engaged in all 7 of these areas, and it's going to take all of us. It's going to take the board. It's going to take administration, teachers. It's going to take the day-to-day operation. We need to say wellness is a priority in all of the messaging and the things that we do. So we'll be coming forward to you and also meeting with the superintendent about some more specific goals and targets that we have that really connect to the WellCOA benchmarks.
And I'm excited to come back this year and kind of present year 2's worth of data. First of all, I want to congratulate Bill. I have to make a personal confession. I was sitting next to Kathy and I go, who is that guy in the right in the red shirt? I go, I think I know him. I go, but I don't know his name. And she looked at me and she goes, oh my God, it's Bill Howard. So kudos to you. You look amazing and you've done amazing work. So I just wanted to give you kind of a brief overview of what our employees did to earn their wellness dollars this year. An insured employee and somebody who takes our district insurance could earn $200. They also, in turn, did an employee contribution of $200. So if they participated fully in the wellness program, then that $200 basically was a wash. And so they had a kind of a 2-step program. And so step 1 was the biometric screening and the wellness assessment. Step 2 was the completion and self-reporting of 6 activities on the Wellmark website. And so we also want to be very inclusive and not exclude those that don't take the insurance or are employee dependents on the plan, so they could earn $100 by self-reporting the 6 wellness activities in step 2. So I just kind of wanted to give you sort of a parameter so as we go forward. I wanted to share with you a little bit about the participation data, because if we don't have participation, we don't have a program. Participation isn't everything, but I'm going to tell you what, in a new wellness program, it's imperative to have some participation numbers, and so it gives us a bank and a guide to go on. I just wanted to share with you sort of in FY 12 and 13 in that year, there wasn't a dedicated position for wellness yet. And so they kind of dabbled in the screening, the assessment, and the other activities weren't available yet or aren't applicable. So we were at about a 15% participation rate. Fast forward to last year, and this is really what I'm looking at is just the primary insureds only. This isn't the whole district, it's just the people that carry our insurance. So we were at a 75% participation rate. Again, first year data, I was thrilled with that. Last year, we were at a 79% participation rate. I think the Fitbits were a great incentive, and I think it was a great way to get another piece of information and a great way to get people more involved. The wellness assessments, we saw a little bit of a drop in, and I think that that's going to come back up this year. I think the wellness assessment went down because the first year in the program, we gave employees 9 months to do the wellness assessment. Last year, we gave employees 6 months to do the wellness assessment, and I think there was some, they thought there would be another extension, so people kind of waited to the last minute. So I look for that to go back up this year as we kind of revamped the program for this year a little bit. Step 2 activities, again, we saw numbers drive back up. More people were out there doing the wellness activities and actually self-reporting and completing all 6 of them. Full participation, we were a little under 50% last year. This past year, we were at 53%. So we are making big strides. And that was kind of the meat of this slide that I wanted to share. What we have to do, though, is we always have to drive forward. We have to look at what do we do to keep employees engaged, to keep them motivated, to keep them thinking about wellness, not just at work, but while I'm at home, while I'm at play, and whatever I'm doing. So it takes lifestyle changes. It takes lifestyle opportunities. It takes sometimes that biometric screening information to get that in front of them. And all those together can reduce medical claims or can keep medical claims from going up. We may never see a total reduction, and like we talked about last night, we're never maybe going to see things to flatline, but we're going to keep our costs contained, and that's really what we want to do. We want to really drive employees to be the healthiest they can be and that they want to be. I kind of wanted to share with you sort of some of our top results and sort of some of our top risks. Overall, we look like most other companies and most other businesses out there. We look at BMI, nutrition, and blood pressure. What we kind of did is we just kind of inverted those a little bit. So we had BMI, nutrition, and blood pressure, and BMI is body mass index. And we kind of flip-flopped the blood pressure and nutrition around this year. That's the overall risks. To look at it just kind of broken down, if you want to look at what our top biometric risks are, that's the next category in the top wellness risks, what people self-reported on their wellness assessments. A couple of things I really want to highlight from this data is that we had, and we worked with Wellmark really closely to get that sort of deeper dive into that information. Our prevention risks, and this is huge, our prevention risks saw the greatest improvement. We decreased our prevention risks 4.1% in 1 year. That is phenomenal. A lot of that is we are driving our employees towards prevention. You can get a Healthy You activity credit or a point, or not a point, but you can count it as an activity by going to the doctor, having your wellness exam. Those are things that are all covered under our policy. Getting your mammograms, prostate exams, colonoscopies, flu shots, shingle shots, whatever it might be. We are really driving our employees towards prevention, and that was one of our big goals. So to drop our prevention 4.1%, that is amazing. I know it doesn't seem like a big number. We moved the needle really big with that. Nutrition risk, again, saw the second greatest improvement. We decreased that by 3.6%. So our employees are actively trying to eat better, trying to learn more about nutrition, and are continually improving on that. So to move the marker on that 3.6% is also a really big indicator, or hopefully a trend of where we're headed. So I'm very excited about that. Our cohort participants did see a little bit of an increase, and a cohort is just, we compared apples to apples. So I compared the people that took the wellness assessment in year 1 to the people that took the wellness assessment in year 2, those same groups. We saw a little bit of a rise in the biometric screening factors. But
I'm responsible
overall-
for half of that.
What's that?
I said I'm responsible for probably about half of that.
Yes, you are.
My bad.
And so, but they also saw really big jumps in their lifestyle changes too. What I wanted to give you again was just another look at sort of our risk analysis. What you're seeing in front of you is our wellness assessment scores. Again, looking at those 2 cohorts from last year and this year. When you look at the participants and you look at the average score, we had 32 participants, so 32 employees in the district were at the lowest end of the wellness assessment. A low score is not a good score. So for the wellness assessment, the higher you can get, the better you are. And the scale is from 0 to 100. So we had 32 individuals that were at that really low, extreme, high-risk group. And then it goes on up. When you look at that average, it's saying 18 of those 32 employees or had a score in that 0 to 25 range. Or 18 of those fell within that. Same thing, that was their mean score. So in the next group, in the high-risk group, the mean score out of those 1,070 employees was 38, and so on. It just kind of puts, I think, a real face to some of those numbers. You know, it doesn't say that, oh, we were at the really high end of everything. I think we can do better, and I think this risk analysis will show that we can do better, and we will continue to do better as an employee group. Have you flipped the next one? This is really the exciting piece, I think, for us. I think this is going to be a real trend, and I'm excited about it. So again, we worked with Wellmark and did kind of that deeper dive into our healthcare claims. And what we are finding is that we looked at anybody in our district that participated in wellness. Didn't matter if you did one activity, didn't matter if you did the full participation. If you participated in wellness, what we found is that our claims, or their claims, were $1,000 less per member per year than those employees that chose not to participate or do anything in wellness. And again, that is a huge marker, and I hope a huge trend, that next year we can see that go up a little bit more even. So I'm excited about that. That's awesome data, and very, very happy to come to at least say, you know what, we're trending in the right direction. So I'm excited about that. This was just kind of a fun slide. I wanted you to kind of see, you know, show me the payout. Where are our bucks? Where are these wellness bucks going? So again, just a nice comparison of last year to this year and the nice improvements that we're seeing. So we are seeing that increased participation rate, especially amongst our insured. When you look at step 1 and step 2, you know, we drove that up 4%. That people actually earned the full wellness dollar, so they earned that $200 back. You know, people that participated at the $150 level, we were up 3%. And so everything went up except for the earned $100 category. But if you look at all the other categories, it would make sense that one of those would kind of fall out and become less because people are doing more and earning more. So I'm excited about. The one arrow that I love on this page is the very bottom one, and it's the red arrow that points down. How often do you get excited about a red arrow? I do, okay? Because the number of employees that earned 0 wellness dollars went down. So that, again, is a leading indicator that employees are doing more, they're getting the hang of it, and they're participating. So I like that arrow. I know you guys had a chance to hopefully kind of review the slides. We just really wanted to share some of the emails that I get. You know, sometimes I get really awesome emails. Sometimes I get some kind of crabby emails. But I wanted to share with you some of the really positive stories over the year that employees shared. And this just happened to be one of them. And like I said, I don't want to take your time and read them each, but I want you to take a look at them because they really are starting to tell the story of not only wellness, but how appreciative people really are of their healthcare benefits that's provided to them by Des Moines Public Schools. So we've had a lot of great success stories. You know, a lot of really great things happening. Our biometric screening is working. You know, every year a biometric screening, somebody sends me an email and says, you know what, I hadn't been feeling very good, and I found out I was diabetic. We had several of those last year. I think that's what we want. We want to get ahead of the game. I'd rather find out now that I can do something about it and then be able to move forward. So I think we're headed in the right direction. Blake hit the nail on the head. It's time to move forward and kind of step up our game a little bit. And so I'm excited to come back to you with some really strong recommendations for how we move forward. And you'll notice that handsome man up in the right-hand corner getting his biometric screening as well.
Term used very loosely, but thank you.
Use last year's though, not this year's. I wondered if we would.
Does it see how much healthier I looked than I did this morning when I was getting it? I got my health screening done again, my biometric screening done again this morning.
And we would like to, as the Health Benefits Advisory Committee, and on behalf of Healthy You, if you guys would like to participate through that biometric screening process, really, I invite you to come to any of our locations. I'll get an email out to you in the next few days, just inviting you. You have 63 different opportunities. Actually, now you have only 62 opportunities to come to any biometric screening that we offer. And I would love it if you kind of came through it, see what our employees are doing, and take in that great information too as well.
Yeah, mine's already booked, so I'm on the books to have it done. Again, it works. Well, I don't know about that.
That'd be awesome. I'm gonna take you up on it.
Yeah. Thank you for the very thorough presentation. And Blake, thank you for your leadership on this committee. This is fantastic work. This is the movement that we need, both literally and figuratively. Board, do you have any discussion or questions about it? It's
great work.
Fantastic.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support.
The next item on our agenda is item E4, Middle School Literacy Monitoring Report. Matt Smith, Noel, and Tim have a presentation for us.
Good evening, Board. Good evening. We are here to continue the great news that the Wellness Committee began. I'm Tim Schott, and I haven't been before you for a while. However, you're going to see a lot of me because this is the fourth in a series of 9 monitoring reports around academic performance, and the next 6 in a row are secondary schools. And after that, we have a middle school report. So 7 more meetings in a row I get to be here, which I'm very excited about. We have a team joining us today, but even before I introduce them, the tremendous success that you're going to hear about today in middle school literacy is absolutely a team effort. You'll notice that that's illustrated first off by Office of Academics and Office of Schools being here together. So there's definitely central office teamwork on this effort, but at the school level, tremendous teamwork from administration and teachers and everyone in the school building to get the results that I think you're going to be thrilled with today. So I have Noel Tickey and Jeremy Swennen here to share with you a format that you're going to recognize. We're utilizing the same format on purpose so that all these monitoring reports hopefully speak to you in a meaningful way, and I'll let them roll.
Okay, we'll jump right in. So looking back at the key performance indicators that we'll be reporting on tonight, we'll be looking at the percent of students who are proficient on the state accountability test, which is IO assessments, collapsed into grades 6 through 8. We'll also be looking at the students making or exceeding typical growth in grades 7 and 8. Just some key terms, reminders, when we say percent proficient, we're really looking at the number of, the percent of students who score at or above that cut score. And when we look at typical growth, we're looking at that growth from year to year. The first graph that you see, this is our overall percent proficiency trend. We experience yearly gains over the last 3 years, but when you look at the 3-year overall trend, we've seen an increase of about 11.66% from 2012 to 2015. Looking at typical growth, this was a little bit of a up and down. We had a form change, as you're well aware, last year. We saw a dramatic spike last year. So we were encouraged to continue to see a trend upward this year, even though the typical growth went down from last year to this year. Overall, from 13 to 15, which is the most valid comparison, we saw an increase of 6% more students making typical growth. As we get into some of the support data, we'll be looking at subgroups, and I think this is where we're most excited. We saw gains across every single subgroup, regardless of the category. All students, here, why is this not working? There we go. All students group, as well as most notable, our free and reduced lunch population saw an increase over 3 years of almost 14%. Our ELL students, which we know presents numerous challenges that we continue to work on, we saw a notable gain of 14%, 14.26 over the 3 years. African American, we're at 13.38%, Asian, 15.5%, Hispanic, 15%, and multiracial, 17%. So some pretty significant gains over the 3-year period by subgroup. This next graph shows also our subgroup trend data, but really looking at typical growth. All subgroups, again, made gains in typical growth from when you look from 2013 to 2015. Most significant, our ELL population, with 17% increase in typical growth over that 3-year period of time. Also notable, and has been not a trend in other data that we've shown you, but we're encouraged by what we're seeing here with our special ed population, with a gain of 8%, Asian 12%, and Hispanic almost 10%. I believe you're familiar with the format of this graph, but really what this next one shows us is the makeup, the demographic makeup of our, looking at our African American subpopulation and looking at how that demographic is made up between free and reduced lunch, ELL, and non-free and reduced. We saw a steady rise from 30% in 2012 to 43.5% in 2015, an increase of 13%. So a pretty significant upward trend over the 3-year time. Looking at the same data for our Hispanic population, about 90% of our Hispanic students were either ELL and or free and reduced lunch, and still noticing an increase of 15.4% over that 3-year period of time. There we go. Our Asian subgroup, again, a steady trend upward. You can see the makeup of our Asian population. This kind of goes up and then back down as far as the makeup of that population. But even with the changing demographics, we saw a steady increase over time of about 15.6% from 2012 to 2015. This is a new data set. I believe that we promised you 2 years ago. Corey Harris, myself, Tim Schott, Dr. Ahart came to you in the spring of, I believe it was 2013. And we made a somewhat controversial decision in our middle schools to do something a little out of the ordinary. We made the decision at that time to what we call detrack our middle schools. So for as long as any of us could remember, we had pre-identified a certain number of kids that met this advanced designation, and how we determined that varied from school to school, but it was typically based on a test score. And then we would put them in a class, and they would have kind of a separate class away from the rest of their peers and have kind of a different experience. So as we looked at our numbers and thinking we can do better, all of our students deserve access to advanced coursework, we thought we can do this differently. So we implemented what we called an embedded honors approach. And this was an opportunity to bring advanced options and bring advanced opportunities to every student in every classroom and support teachers in creating those advanced opportunities. So what we had done essentially was, rather than a small percentage of students getting access to what we would call rigorous coursework, we said, let's bring that rigor to all classes.
Maybe more importantly, the message that they were capable, that these were the students who were capable of advanced coursework.
Absolutely. So now every student in every classroom has an opportunity to get an honors designation through advanced coursework, not based on us determining that at the beginning of the year who we deem to be advanced. So, and as you know, middle school kids are forming opinions about themselves as students, determining their pathways, deciding whether or not I'm good at science or good at math or good at English language arts. So this is a way for kids to say, I can do this if I have enough time and support and opportunity. So, to get back to the numbers, we started in 2011 and 12. This chart represents the number of students who actually reached advanced levels, and we were at about 364 students district-wide. Our changes were implemented in full scale in 13-14, and then again this year in 14-15. We saw a significant jump to 885 students reaching advanced levels in 13-14, and again another jump last year in full implementation for 14-15 up to 923. So we promised that we would monitor this. This is something that we've paid close attention to, and it's something that we continue to believe in and something that we'll continue to support because we think that we can do better. 923 isn't enough. It's just a heck of a lot better than what we were doing. So we're pretty proud of that. I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy Swenin to talk about next steps with the response to data.
It's been really exciting to work with middle schools and high schools through the period that this data reflects, because so many things have come to light and sort of transformed for teachers, not because of any particular initiative, but just because we have such an incredible group of teachers working with our kids. And so, of course, our first response to data is to stay the course. It's not very often we get to look at a series of numbers and they are, in general, moving in the direction we want them to move. And so we certainly don't want to jeopardize the good things that teachers are already doing. So we had to figure out what are those good things. The universal core, that instruction that all students get, that instruction that now includes advanced opportunities for all kids, that has to be our focus. And so we're really looking at all the various pieces we have in motion and how that contributes to the classroom experience for all of our students. So the instructional framework gives us that opportunity to have the language of instruction so that we can focus on what works for kids and how we can continue to share those capacities amongst our staff members. The Wallace Grant gave us opportunity to really focus on how we support school leadership, not just trying to solve problems in classrooms one classroom at a time, but looking at the whole school as this living, breathing entity, because where goes administration, there goes the students. We also have the opportunity that the TLC grant gives us with additional instructional coaching support for all of our teachers, and the chance for any teacher who's not sure if they're doing the right thing to learn immediately on-the-spot support. That's something that they have not historically had a great deal of, and it can only improve our outcomes. Standard reference grading is I think we say game changer a lot, but it changed everything that we talk about. It gives us the opportunity to have conversations about really focused things. What was good teaching in the absence of the framework and a focus that standards reference grading provides was nebulous. It was up to each person to decide what is their version of good teaching. If we're going to improve universal core and continue to see numbers that move in the direction we want, we have got to make sure that we're focusing on clear communication to students and families so that students can come to the table. It's not just improving the quality of teaching, but improving the quality of learning that our kids are experiencing. And of course, rigor. You can't have enough rigor. You can't have enough opportunities to find new approaches for rigor. And this detracking initiative has really opened the door to all the different ways that we could have been doing this for a while now. But now the mandate is clear, that we have to continue to find new ways to bring rigor to all students, even students who did not previously believe they were capable of rigor. Intervention is a necessary part of supporting the universal core. We cannot do everything in core. The idea of differentiation is a powerful part of teaching practice, but one teacher cannot get every student in that classroom every single thing that they need. So we need an intervention system that gives us the chance to address those needs that exceed the scope that a teacher can reasonably manage. So a common intervention structure is really important to us in reading, particularly at the middle school. We've looked to the Achieve 3000 software as a toolkit that helps a wide variety of teachers reach kids where they're at with text. So many of the things we do in class are about instructional strategies, analysis, and deep thinking, but then we have kids who still struggle to just read text at the level that is appropriate to them. And so this is one tool that we use in intervention. It's in place in all of our middle schools now to make sure that students are reading text that is nonfiction, that is the kind of text we read in life, not just the kind of text that English teachers love to have us read. And because of that, we get this opportunity for kids to understand the world firsthand and not to just be told about it. They're reading articles drawn from the Associated Press at a level that they can read independently and then constantly challenged to ratchet that up to the next level, to push themselves to get to the place where they need to be for college and career. Close reading strategies are really the big push for this year as we move in. We've got kids comfortable in more nonfiction text than ever before, but now what are they doing with it? Now that they're not intimidated by it, how are they getting everything they can from it? Because the kind of reading we're called upon to do as adults is rarely the kind of reading that you get to just skim through one time and be done with. And so they need the stamina for that, the skill set to really dig deep, and that's what our intervention is really providing for those students. And our PLC structure, those common opportunities for teachers to come together across the district and make sure that students' opportunities are dictated by the quality of an entire teaching staff across the city, not by the chance opportunity of one great teacher in one great place. And so those common conversations continue. They've been incredibly impactful. Every year we learn more and more about how to get teachers to really work together for the common good of their students. And we've never had the kind of conversations that we were really starting to gravitate towards last year, where the focus was on what are we doing to ensure learning for all of our students.
With that, we will open it up for discussion.
Okay, board, any questions or comments?
Well, this is great. I think in particular that slide 12 with the new approach to giving more students the opportunity to think about themselves and challenge themselves to get hit those advanced levels. That was great. I guess my one question is, as we've gone through all the elementary schools, the constant refrain has been Iowa assessments is just not like something that's lined up really well with our curriculum, and it's not something that we necessarily trust to provide like a real assessment of where our students are at, and especially with growth. I'm assuming that's the same here, and does that give you any? I mean, these numbers look
Still
great.
a bad assessment.
Right. Numbers look great, but the assessment itself is still flawed, and so it's presumably difficult to say with a level of certainty that we'd like to have that these numbers reflect really 100% like what's going on in these students' lives. Is that right?
That would be correct. I mean, it's still, the alignment isn't as tight as we want it to be. It's still not a great indicator of where we want our students to be. However, it continues to be an indicator. We have other assessments, and I don't know that I'll get into it now. I certainly can, but we brought a sample of what a dashboard looks like that we've created in our standards-based system that is more reliable data that we've used, and other indicators that we pay closer attention to. This was our summative kind of program evaluation that, none of us, we've had these conversations, we don't really have the choice but to pay attention to it and administer it. So yes, and I certainly don't want to discredit, gains that teachers are making and working hard. This is a really positive indicator, but again, I'm not 100% confident in the assessment itself.
But we do have additional assessments that mirror and support this trend in middle school. But for the purpose of the monitoring report, we've we've stuck to bringing you the same data every time, and we're going to keep doing that. But we have more formative ongoing assessments that predicted this result and speak to it in other ways also. Mm-hmm.
Connie?
In those formative assessments that you're having, is it a matter of you're just starting it so we really don't have trends to be able to report that maybe in another year, the reports that you have could substantiate, help back this up?
Well, part of the challenge too, and part of the appeal of the Iowa assessments, even though nobody's more outspoken against it than I am, is having a number that you can make sense of from level to level to level.
Right.
And all those formative assessments really change pretty significantly from elementary to middle to high. What we will be in a few years, and in middle school sooner than that, is being able to report out with a high degree of confidence on where our students are based on our teacher created standards reference grades.
Okay.
We're not ready to use that in the monitoring reports yet because we have more work to do to make sure that there's validity and technical soundness around those numbers. And that is really where we hope to get. And then hopefully too, in a very near future, we'll have a different state test that we also know is better aligned with the curriculum that we're teaching and that we find more utility in.
So speaking of standard reference grading, do we think that that is having a very positive impact on students' ability to learn?
Absolutely.
All the evidence points in that direction.
I mean, because it's kind of the same time we see this jump in scores is the same, we also have standard reference grading.
Correct.
And the other point would be the ELL pro, when you look at the ELL students on the results or what you're going to do differently, I mean, is there even more within all of the things you listed, is ELL infused in that we're going to really go after the ELL population in a greater way?
So two things in regard to ELL. One thing that standards reference grading has done for us is it's raised the expectations. And so all of our sub-pops benefit from higher expectations and support to get there. The other thing that we're engaging in starting in October is we're going to conduct a thorough ELL review with the Council of the Great City Schools, and they're going to make some very specific recommendations, similar to what they've done with our special education department, to help us be really strategic in where do we really invest our resources and our efforts to yield the greatest gains, because we absolutely acknowledge that it's still, even though we're trending up, it's still a significant area of need.
Well, if you could, the increase where you want to really move the needle, if you look at the number
Right.
is in that ELL population.
Absolutely.
For sure.
The other encouraging thing is for the first time, our state has released language proficiency standards. So as an ELL teacher, in absence of standards, it becomes very difficult to provide that direct instruction and to progress monitor students because we didn't have anything to measure against, right? So now we have these English language proficiency standards for the first time that really support us in tracking progress towards language proficiency and not just our academic student achievement data. And so that's all underway and will be in place in the next year.
There are several things, Connie, that contribute to this, and standards reference grading is certainly a huge piece of it. But we realize that we can't point to one or two things specifically. But another element I would lift up is sort of pre-Wallace, when we were focusing our energy on leadership development, instructional leadership capacity development of our principals. With Tom's assistance, we really started to reorganize the Office of Schools to support instructional leadership, and I would say invested in the middle schools most heavily initially. So I believe that there's a correlation between that investment in instructional leadership development of the leaders and these results also.
The standards referenced initiative starting at middle school is counterintuitive to most people, but we chose middle school, even though it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, because that's clearly where we had the biggest need. That's not unique to Des Moines, but we chose to take on that monumental challenge first, and it is paying off in spades. I would say that there are some very big building blocks here that are helping us move forward, But what really makes this work is that we have a teaching staff that, and I've said this before, but I honestly believe it, the strength of this district is an instructional staff, the entire staff, but particularly the instructional staff that absolutely believes in the potential of each and every one of our students, and being very self-critical in how we're conducting our business to make sure that we're not unintentionally and blindly putting up barriers that send the message unintentionally and sometimes invisibly to our students that prevent them from reaching that potential. And we still have more work to do in that area, and our work around cultural proficiency is going to help us do better with that. But there's really been an absolute willingness by virtually all of our staff to say, let's be reflective and see how we can do better, because regardless of what we think about our teaching, to Jeremy's point, what really counts is the learning that's taking place with the students. And change, that's seems like a small, but it's a very significant shift in how our teachers and our principals are doing their work.
So what I passed around is just a visual representation of a dashboard that our teachers now have access to in middle school and starting in high school. That top graph, and by the way, this is not data for the sake of this report. This is just data for the dashboard, the visual, right? So at the top, what you can see is that course grade analysis. Our teachers and leaders now have access to looking at overall for that entire course, whether it's Algebra 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, whatever it might be. What's the grade distribution? And now that our grades are based on academic achievement, it's a pretty reliable data set to say this is where our kids are performing as a district in this course. So principals have that across their entire building. Then as you drill down, teachers have the option to, at the PLC level, dig into each topic. And so this is where we start getting standards-based to say, where are my students performing on creating equations or interpreting functions or linear inequalities? And so that bottom is a finer grain look at looking how our students are achieving by topic. And so obviously that has the most impact on the classroom directly in planning for instruction and adjusting instruction. And then on the right, we have the ability to take any of these data and filter them by subgroup, by semester, by teacher, by grade level. And so that's really where we start getting into the fine-grained monitoring of, for example, if we want to know how our ELL students are doing or our free and reduced lunch students, we can filter it that way. So this is really the type of data that we want to get part of our day-to-day practice and less Iowa assessments.
Exactly, and this really does, what this really does ultimately is, our two biggest tools to help students is time and people. And this kind of data lets us make the most of that. So our teachers can drill down and say, this is really, know with great confidence, this is really where I need to be spending my time with my students in my classroom. And not just following a curriculum guide that says, well, it's the second week of September,
right,
so I should be here. And it's the third week of October, and I should be here. Really talking about what are those well-articulated learning objectives and where are my students performing against those. And if we need to spend more time here, or if certain students need to spend more time here, or if I need extra support with these students, I know how to ask for it, and people like Jeremy can better respond more precisely with better improved and more timely solutions. So this may not seem impressive to you, but we are way ahead of the curve in the country in having this kind of data available at the fingertips of our teachers and principals, and that will just allow them to do their best work.
The other thing I should add is you can click on any of those colored bars and get a list of students who are falling in that category. For the teachers
Right.
to use, correct. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool.
Barry?
So I really like the focus on nonfiction, really important. And I think that's sort of for so many kids where the rubber meets the road when it comes to reading anyway. So that's great. I did have a couple of just general questions around the data. I know we saw some fairly huge shifts from 2012 to current, but as the last couple of years, it's moving, but just sort of nice and steady. And the question is, are there particular interventions that are anticipated that are going to continue to somehow accelerate that. Recognizing that we had some huge gains, but I think we also had some different measurement tools in there somewhere along the way too. But I guess that would be my question, really looking most specifically on 14 and 15, gains, but small. Any thoughts?
Do you want to address it? Do you want me to talk about that?
Well, one of the things is, intervention has been, slapdash is the word I'm going to use.
Is that something like, what was that movie? Flashdance? I don't know.
Different.
Depending on the building.
Okay.
Because everybody tried to figure out the best possible fix given a really wide range of variables. And so work that we really started with last year is figuring out how do we make sure that every building has the same kinds of supports so that students can receive a reliable and routinely successful intervention. So particularly around reading skills, we had, each building, and still to this day, we have a number of different programs and structures in place because we've seen them successful with those students. But we also found places where people were forced to scrounge, to figure out this might work. And so instead, we look at the tools that we've seen success with in different places and make sure that's available to everyone and in significantly larger numbers than ever before. There is a student with a need in reading support has access to the same intervention tools. We've worked really hard to make sure they have copious access, that we're not saying we can only support 75 kids through this, that just because there happens to be a large amount of need does not mean that some of the students with that need are excluded. Finding ways, connecting with after-school opportunities, during school opportunities, nooks and cranny opportunities so that wherever a student is at, we can find a way to connect them to the kind of instruction that they need instead of it was very reactive, and we're trying to step into that proactive direction. That expansion is really it's really in birthing pains right now as we figure out how to get all the right tools to all the right people. But I'm incredibly optimistic because of the sheer number of students who have access to support and the kind of support that extends beyond the school day, the kind of support they continue to experience even when the teacher's not sitting right next to them. That's things like our Achieve 3000 software that really connect kids to interesting nonfiction text at their level, even if the teacher isn't right there. We had students, ELL students oftentimes, who use that software tool all summer long. They haven't seen a teacher in 2 or 3 months, and they still log in every day and read nonfiction articles and take quizzes that no one is compelling them to take because they want to learn, they want to improve, and this is just an opportunity they hadn't previously had access to.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing we want to continue, and this has been a message K-12, is the best intervention is prevention. And so investing in our core is the most significant thing that we can do right now, which points to all of the things that we've listed. So while intervention continues to get attention, we want our priorities to be on improving the core experience for kids to reduce, because we can't intervene on 50% of our kids. We just don't have the resources. And so the best thing we can do is continue to strengthen the core through all the things that we've talked about, so we can get that to a manageable number.
So I think the other thing too is, recognizing that reading is such a basic building block and really creates, the opportunity for kids to excel in so many other areas. I would be interested in cohort data that we might be able to identify that might be able to help us track even kids that have been in a preschool experience moving into an elementary and middle school, so we can really begin to see, sort of the effects of some of that early intervention and how it tracks. But the other thing, and this is just really a comment, I really like that notion of the embedded honors approach, because I think when we begin to think about the work that we're doing at the high school level, especially with advanced placement, this is sort of the precursor to that.
Exactly.
So it's creating that early expectation that all kids can achieve, and it really puts them on that path to want to excel when they get, into high school and take on, those more rigorous courses. So I really love that approach. So thank you.
And we have to thank you for the board's support on that, because we know that there was some concern in the community with that decision, and we always felt very supported by the school board throughout last year and continue to feel supported with that, so we do appreciate that.
Yeah, I do think that, the best thing we can do is figure out all of the places where we can have an opportunity to intervene with kids outside of the school day, and really trying to engage in a more significant way with other people who are doing things with kids that really help them outside of the school time to be ready and to excel. So,
Mr. Howard?
I saw the special ed increase, which I like. Can you walk me through the standard-based grading as far as it relates to the special ed component?
Sure. Well, here's where the system can be pretty powerful, because just because you have an IEP doesn't mean you're held to lesser standards. And so the standards are the standards. Whether you have an IEP, 504, doesn't matter. So the only students that we're actually changing the standard, or what we would call modifying the standards, are students with significant disabilities, or true learning disability. And so I would hypothesize that has contributed. The other thing that has contributed is that our special ed department has been really intentional in providing specified or specific professional development during those District Wednesdays to supporting struggling learners. And so they're rather than focusing on how do we change the standard, it's how do we support students in reaching the standard. And so that's where the effort has been, on those accommodations versus lowering the bar.
Okay. Kind of shifting gears, kind of maybe on what Terry said, about the embedded program. I noticed the sixth grade numbers always were a little lower, and it seemed that you get a big jump. Do you think it's, I don't want to use the word intimidation, but is it that transition, sort of like you were talking about on the other end, from elementary to middle school, which to me, back 100 years ago, it seemed that was a very traumatic year, I would say. So do you think there's some of that transition period, and the fact that maybe they are a little bit intimidated?
Well, I would say, Bill, actually, there's a bit of good news in that sixth grade data. And if you notice, I would say previously maybe that was a larger factor than it is now. If you notice the sixth grade numbers for the 14-15 year of 317, that's dramatically different than the first 2 years, the relationship between sixth grade to seventh and eighth grade, that you accurately are pointing out. So I hope that our transition activities between elementary and middle school that we've invested significant energy into are helping students feel welcome, feel able, and that as embedded honors is sort of the rule of the day, or the way we operate, that it's not a change for them coming in, but rather they're becoming more and more comfortable to it because it's what they expect.
Mm-hmm. Is there a kind of I don't want to use the word, well, I will use it, a word of mouth, or however you want to phrase it, so that kids maybe now are less, for a better word, intimidated than previously, that maybe it could be the teachers and the whole environment is a little bit more conducive than it was previously?
We hope so. I mean, I don't know that we have a way to measure that necessarily, but along with all of our SRG training, we're also doing a lot of staff development on growth mindset. And so as we start to develop those growth mindsets in kids, that failure is okay, it's not okay to stay there, and we're going to help you, that you can learn from failure, and we're going to recover from failure. And so I think taking the fear out of failure, and that a challenge is a good thing. If school is hard, that's not a bad thing. I think that will help build that culture, and that's something that all of our middle schools and now into high schools are really embracing.
Well, it seems like it's funneling up, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And then my computer went to sleep or whatever. I saw that there was two subgroups. One was the multiracial, that I think was 50.3 or 13, and it went up to 53.08. I messed up because
That's right.
is that right? And then the other one was the white subgroup that was 50.52, went up to 53.92. Well, the others made it seem like a fairly, what I would call significant. Those two were not quite as significant. Do you think is that just something that, call it the bubble, or do you think there's an underlying cause?
I don't have a hypothesis there.
Yeah,
Do you
I don't
do?
either.
I'm like,
And I'm still trying to find which graph you're referring to. Are you
Well,
talking the proficient or the growth?
Page 4.
Okay.
Typical growth.
Typical growth. Mhm. The other thing with typical growth, Mary, where are you? Here we go.
Hey.
Enter data expert.
well, she was sitting over there. I had to get something.
Yeah.
You had to make it worth me driving here. didn't
That's
you?
right. We had to get you up here.
Well, if you look at the proficiency graph, those are our two highest achieving subgroups. So they've had the least amount of, so that tells me that we are moving kids on the lower end of the continuum at a more rapid pace. So we're bringing those kids on the low. Yeah, we're pulling up our low kids. We're doing a good job of pulling up our low kids to be more on grade level with their peers.
Well, thank you, Mary. I just wanted to see you over here.
And the higher you are, the harder it is to grow, right?
Okay.
Right,
Or not grow, but to
Well,
move on the.
it just,
yeah,
you know, it
accelerate.
did kind of stick out there, and
Yeah.
it's great to know that, because if the little me saw that, somebody out in TV land may have been asking the same thing, so
Yeah.
now they know.
Bill, you also brought up something I have to comment on, which is, what might be contributing to sixth graders in particular feeling more comfortable in school, less intimidated, I think was your term. And if you'll think back to the last few years regarding culture and climate data in our middle schools, dramatic improvements in the culture and climate, and with students being in school, not out of school suspended, with far fewer office referrals. And so I hope that the conditions in our middle schools for learning are dramatically better over these last few years than they were also.
I agree, because I think that middle school, that's a tough time, for lack of better words, and anything we could do to make it more conducive, easy, transition, whatever words you want to hang on it, I think we see the benefits at the end of the day.
Agreed.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Rob?
One quick note on the advanced table, and you're right. To recall, there was a bit of public concern that was perhaps misplaced at the time. I think because ultimately this decision was about equalizing opportunity, which I think the district appropriately recognized was not the case here, and owned it, and took the steps, however unpopular to some members of the community, to fix it. And you should be very proud of these numbers. I can tell that you are. This is the right thing to do. My one thought is, as we are, Tim noted at the very beginning, that we'll be seeing a lot of him next couple of weeks. And I would imagine maybe we'll be seeing this table again represented in our other two middle school reports. It could be interesting to see, as a supplement, a disaggregation of this data.
Yes, I would agree.
And not only typically disaggregated by ethnic and racial and disability numbers, but also by buildings. I would imagine that there is a story to be told about the buildings that now have kids with honor status that perhaps did not at all, or had very few a couple of years ago. So just one note. And thank you for the good report.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you all. That was a very good report. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve or to accept E4 Middle School Literacy Monitoring Report?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Mr. Howard. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is item E5, Board Governance Policy Revision, GP 1.10 Board Committee Structure. So this is just a discussion item. It's the first pass of the change to the committee structure to add that Legislative Education and Advocacy Committee. So is there any discussion on that? It's just to add that to the list, on our committee list.
I was just wondering, we have members on, is this the one that Board Development Committee, or is this the other one? Did I open up the wrong one? The Audit Committee and Composition, and or there's two of them here. So is this the Legislative Education?
Yeah.
Is that the one you have open? Okay, I opened up the wrong one, sorry. I guess what I was saying is the membership structure, we have, you know, a student, a parent, maybe can we look at somebody on the education side in here? So that we had the whole.
Like a staffer, you mean?
Teacher, I don't care, just somebody on the education side, so that when we go up there, somebody's going to say, I know somebody's going to say, well, what's somebody who's a teacher or somebody on the education side going to say? Well, if you have them there, then that addresses that issue. Just food for thought.
Any other comments? This would be on the next agenda. Looking. Okay, yeah, it doesn't designate on the committee structure that puts into our policy that who's on it. So it just says 3 board
So it
members.
could be,
And
yeah.
committee chair shall be appointed by the board chair.
But on your the other document, the legislative, the description
right.
of the committee itself has, I think, space for Tom to appoint staff members to it, which is, I think, where Bill's guidance is relevant and should be noted when we pass this and when Tom appoints some staff members to it. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Okay. Any other comments on that?
Nope.
All right. Thank you. The next item we have on the agenda are items of privilege. Chair's report. I know Tom's going to touch on some of these things. The U.S. Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan's visit to Des Moines schools on Monday, September 14th. And that's something I think our community can be proud of as we continue to work in giving our students more and more opportunities to be successful. And then second, I'm planning to visit the newly renovated Ruby Van Meter tomorrow morning as students start their new school year there. And I know Tom has more to say about that as well. So I will turn it over to Superintendent Ahart.
Well, great. Sharon is here. Sharon. Hey. I rode with Sharon on the first day of school on the school bus, and I wished there were a way to capture a lot of that on video. Well, there was. I could have worn a video camera, I suppose. But we picked up about, I don't know, what, 24 Callahan kids or so, dropped them at Callahan with one student that we dropped at Roosevelt, and then we took some Roosevelt kids to Central, and then we had to go way out on East Hole to pick up one homeless boy to bring to King Elementary. And then we picked up maybe 50 Perkins kids about. But it was really a telling picture of the population that we serve, because first day of school and all of these mostly mothers, some fathers with their kids ready to send them off, you know, standing on the street corner, and Sharon would pick them up and the door opens and you would hear in lots of different accents, Perkins? Because of a lot of non-English speakers. And it's phenomenal how Sharon, and I know our other bus drivers too, make these families feel welcome, and the trust that these families put in our hands to take care of their children is really, it tells a really good story. So if you have a chance, I'm sure Sharon would love to have you along. You have to get there pretty early. She did a fantastic job, and it was a great way for me to kick off the school year for for the bulk of our schools. And thank you, Sharon, for allowing me to join you. And I felt safe the whole time, too. I'll say. As Cindy shared, Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan will be visiting our district. He does a beginning of the school year tour every year. This year he's hitting the Midwest. He will be stopping in Des Moines. We're still waiting on final details. I was hoping that we would have that by now to share with you, but I'll certainly send that to the board as soon as we have details. But we know it will be an evening meeting at North High School, and the focus is going to be on college accessibility. And certainly you'll all be invited. We're still waiting for these visits from representatives of the president's team are difficult to get tight details until the very last minute, but we'll keep you posted on that. But it is an honor that we were chosen, and it'll be great to have Secretary Duncan at North. And Ruby Van Meter. You all may remember the many parents who came to speak to the support of you approving the renovations at Ruby Van Meter School, a school that I described that from the outside looks like a women's prison. Very few windows. It's a cold, stark concrete structure. And on the inside, I'm not sure what the thinking was behind the design, but not the best places for serving some students who really need some special care. The bids for that project, partly because of the nature of the building, were few and far between because it's a difficult building to work in, and a lot of our construction companies had plenty of work, and so the bid, you may remember, came in way over what we had budgeted, and so we revised down the first year's work, went back out for bid, and Cindy Wise, the principal at Ruby Van Meter, wisely emphasized, as did Bill Good, touching classroom spaces first. And I visited today, and although they're still busy putting away boxes and getting their classroom set up, what a remarkable transformation. And if you can be there tomorrow when the students and families first get a chance to experience those classrooms, if I had been placed in that first classroom I visited today without having gone through the front door of Ruby Van Meter, I never would have guessed it was the same school. And there's some remarkable state-of-the-art lighting that I think we're the first district in the nation to install. It's been installed both at Smouse and at Ruby Van Meter that will allow our instructional staff to make all sorts of really cool modifications to the lighting in the room to best suit the varying conditions and needs of our students. So I'm really proud that you all supported that project. And when you have a chance to get over there, if you've not been there before, what an amazing space for some kids who really need an amazing space, and the staff is so appreciative. So that will be our last school, actually, to start session this year because we delayed the start of the school year by a week so we could complete that first phase of the project, and it was well worth the wait. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? Mm-hmm.
Just want to remind everybody, school board elections coming up next week.
What?
September 8th. Make sure you get out and vote. We've got 3 districts and 2 for the first time this year. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a good turnout. Forums are going well, but definitely encourage the listening audience to get out and vote on September 8th.
Anyone else? Okay, with that, I will close the meeting.